Well, hi there, this is John Teng, and this is the Teardrop Glass Chandelier 43-inch by Restoration Hardware. This chandelier is a design by Timothy Olton, inspired by a 1970s Italian design. Absolutely gorgeous. And been thinking about this for about a year, and finally we decided to put this up. We had some problems with it though. We had to retrofit the installation. This was not able to be installed directly to the ceiling. That dome is actually foam. It's actually 4 pieces of foam that are bolted together by flanges. So just couldn't hold the weight of this is a 517-pound chandelier. So you can see all the pieces still going up there right now. So what we had to do was actually take eye bolts and screw them into the rafters right there. And then we also use 3/16" wire rope. And there we go. Use the clamp set here. Used clamp sets. I used about 8 of them to distribute the load to the rafters, just to keep it off that foam. So what we did was we actually used an eye bolt though. So the eye bolt went through where the screw was supposed to. You can't see it right here, but this pan is the lower of 2, and there's one that's above it. And that is actually drilled through the foam dome where this eye bolt then goes through. So then the eye bolt goes through, and then we tied that around with the wire rope, and then went right to the rafters and basically took the weight off the foam. So from there, you can see we've got this chain right here, and this is awesome. It's got an actual overall, a max height of 124 inches, 124 3/4 inches is what it says in the installation instructions. And it's absolutely beautiful. Beautiful kind of a brushed bronze look. We weren't able to use that though, so the 2 pans are actually, let me see if I can peek in there a little bit and show you. You can't see it kind of there in the shadow, but there's only like 3 links between the installed pan and then the one that floats with the lights. We just didn't have the room to go any further, and so we just worked with what we had, but the dome just screamed that it needed this particular chandelier, so there it is. And I think it was going to work out well. What I'm going to do next is where that shadow effect is at the top, because you know it's just so tight. I'm going to put a light kit, an LED light kit up there, and put it at a 45-degree angle. Maybe one row at a 45-degree angle, and then another row at a 90-degree angle, so it shines up to the higher pitch of the dome and then shines out towards the furthest edge of the dome, just to light up the whole thing. So that should be cool too. We'll just tie it into the existing power at the top. So that's another project. So we have that. I will say that this particular chandelier is not for the faint of heart. We had 2 guys, me and my contractor, installed this, but it was really a 4-man job. We had 3 ladders that we had to use to install. Just that, the lower pan is what I call it there, with the lights and the hooks that hold the actual crystals. That probably weighs about 150 pounds, and we had to scale up each of our own ladders and then put it in between a middle ladder to kind of hold it in place, to kind of stage it for a moment, flip it over, and then hook it into the pan that's mounted to the dome. So this is a little bit crazy there. I was really hoping we weren't going to die and ruin the weekend. So probably should use 4 guys, four contractors, that is, and also perhaps even a lift to get this up there. It's very, very heavy without even the crystals. Now the crystals do come in 4 different boxes here. You can see them right here. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they're all individually wrapped, and they're numbered. You can kind of see right here. They're all separate. And this in itself is a little bit tricky. I called and made some comments about this. They don't really show you exactly how they're supposed to be installed. Now, there's just so many of them. I haven't even counted them. I'm actually sitting here just kind of going by inventory because they don't tell me. So as you can see right here, I just kind of keeping track here I've got an 8 and a 7 and an 8 and a 7, and that's because they're numbered by you can see here they've got particular lengths, and they go from number 1 all the way up to number 13 in lengths, but they don't show quantities. And then actually on the hooks on the lower portion of the pan, they don't show you which particular crystal goes where. So I called them, and Restoration Hardware doesn't even know themselves. This was another thing that I should have known this about Restoration Hardware. I love their things, just for the record, but they get these products from extremely talented craftspersons, but they're middlemen. So they get them and they just move them along. So they really don't have power in terms of how these schematics are drawn. So you know, when I tried to ask them, can you send me some more information? They're saying we're hands are tied because, you know, we didn't even create them in the first place. So even some of these dimensions right here, I would have been nice during the installation if they could have given me just the overall width of the chandelier body and then the height. I know they show me numbers here, but I want to see visually what's going on here for the install. You know, depending on what I have to work with in my home or a contractor has to work, you know, having more specifics the better. And it seems like just another small detail that of service that you could provide in order to make that easier for the installer. And also to minimize returns. So I hope Restoration Hardware hears this. I've also mentioned it to many customer service employees. So there's that. Now, in terms of putting them in, it was a trial and error to figure out what to do, but here's what I figured out here. So from what they show you here is that the largest, the tallest, the number 13s are in the center, and then from there it kind of works outwards. And what they show you is that the next row is the glass drop. They call it 11 number - 12 number. And so what that is just alternating the number 11s and the number 12 all the way around that particular ring. And then again, so then the next outer ring is the number 9s and the number 10s alternated, and all the way out until you get to the furthest extreme ring. And those are your shortest crystals. So that's kind of what we've been doing right here. And they're all individually wrapped meticulously. Restoration Hardware, they make that, I guess they make that clear with their vendors to do that very, very, very well. So everything is exceptionally protected when it gets to you. And their customer service, as much as it is in their power, they do a great job to make the customer happy. So we've had some returns and some other things, and they've been very, very good to work with there. But I think they could work better with their vendors to make sure that the details for installation are more clear for the installers. So that'll go around there, 517 pounds. Make sure you have 4 people on this job. I mean, just to install this thing is probably going to be another $1,000 to $1,500, depending on, you know, who takes this particular job on. But in the end, it's going to be absolutely beautiful. So looking forward to this. I'll try to show the end result once it's all said and done. Probably not with the LED light kit, at least in this particular video, but certainly with what we're doing right now. Another thing that you want to consider while you're installing the crystals is all the fingerprints. Look how long these crystals are. Your paws are gonna get all sorts of fingerprints on these. They're heavy, and you're gonna have to really be careful because you can kind of see there's that long wire, and you've got a very small hook that you've got to insert into an eyelet while you're on a very tall ladder and get that into place. So you're gripping everything. So by the time you get just one of these crystals into place, I mean, the thing is covered with fingerprints. So the way I worked around that is I do English country dancing, Jane Austen style. So we wear white gloves while we do that. So what I do is I invert them. You can kind of see here, there's kind of like a knobby side. That's actually the palm side, but what I do is I flip it over and I use that softer side to actually grip the crystal. The problem with that though is that you've got a very small hook that you've got to work with right here. You can kind of see this. That's a very small hook, and try to manage that with your hand in this glove. Try to get it to open and then hook it onto the eyelet while you're keeping your balance while you're 8 feet, 10 feet, or however high you're up in the air with the chandelier, depending on how you've had it adjusted. You're in danger. So you got to be very careful with that. But what this does, it just helps me to prevent having to wipe all these crystals down while I'm touching them and handling them. There's still a little bit that I have to do, but I minimize that. But there's a little bit of a risk of being losing your balance. So be careful with that. If you're uncomfortable with that, then certainly just go ahead and hire a professional contractor to do this install. It's worth it. 517 pounds, this high up in the air, with so many considerations, with unclear installation instructions. This is really one of those particular products where you just get a pro to come in and do this. But the final result, I think, is going to be just absolutely stunning. So excited to see the end result, and I'll show that to you here in just a bit. So one of the things from a maintenance perspective that I just want to add to the video as well is the fact that these crystals are going to be a nightmare to clean. Well, the first part is that they are absolutely beautiful. There's no doubt about that, but they're hollow. And you can see right here, I'm really high up on a ladder. I'm going to show you here. You can see here that's a bored out hole. I could have showed you from the ground, but this is just cooler with the lights on. They're bored out, so what's going to happen is over time, these crystals are going to fill with dust. And I'm right now in the air trying to pull off the fingerprints. I had some white gloves that I started with, but they just got so mucky that it got even worse than just using my bare hands. So now I'm having to go up onto a ladder and wipe them down after I install them. You got to get a good firm grip on them. So I figured that was better just to use my bare hands in the end and then wipe them down thereafter. But you're going to have to pull them off in order to clean them on the inside. And these hooks, there's been a few times where I've misplaced or installed it incorrectly, put the wrong crystal in the wrong spot. What I'm doing is alternating them. I think that's what you're supposed to do. They don't really tell you that specifically in the instructions, but for each number, for each row inside this, you can see this circle. There's an outer circle, and then it kind of works its way in. There's rows of these circles. So what happens is that for each of these circles, the widest circle has two different numbers that are associated with it. So those are the ones, and the number ones and the number twos. And then the second inward is the number threes and the fours. And the third one's the fours and the fives. I hope I said that right. So what happens is that you put them in and alternate them. So there's been a few times where I've not installed them correctly and I've had to take them off of these hooks. And that has been extremely difficult, especially 10 feet up in the air. So you got to get them off the hook. Well, anyway, get them one by one. And then you have to wash them on the inside. And use some type of soft bottle brush. Let them dry out. Buff them all out again. And then hang them up again. So, man, this is a spectacular chandelier, no doubt. But I suppose anything that's this beautiful is very high maintenance. This is the law of nature, so many ways. So this is a beautiful, beautiful decoration. But I can see some work that's going to be needed here in the future to keep it looking crystal clear. So that's kind of getting each of these crystals in here. You've got to use both hands to get on it. You need one hand to hold onto the crystal. You need another hand to get this very, very small hook into that eyelid and just use your balance on this ladder. I can't think of another way to do this. If you got a man lift or something where you can tie yourself into a belt, certainly that's another way. But then you got to bring that heavy load into your house of a man lift And if you got it on a second floor, make sure that your floor in your home can handle that type of load. So that's been kind of a scary element of putting up this chandelier, putting up the crystals. It's beautiful though.